Are you ready to explore the chilling secrets hidden within ancient stone walls? Do you believe some stories refuse to stay buried, echoing through time for centuries? From the majestic spires of British royalty to the shadowed halls of forgotten French chateaux, prepare to delve into the haunting legends of medieval queens, who even in death refused to leave their castles behind. For hundreds of years, spectral figures have been reported, mysterious whispers heard, and inexplicable cold spots felt, all tied to the tragic fates of women whose lives were irrevocably linked to power, passion, and betrayal. What if their cries for justice or their undying love still linger? Number 10. Hever Castle, England. Hever Castle, nestled in the picturesque Kent countryside, seems like a fairy tale come to life with its moats, battlements, and stunning gardens. Yet beneath its charming exterior lies a tale of love, ambition, and ultimate tragedy, deeply entwined with the ghost of one of England's most famous and ill-fated queens, Anne Boleyn. Hever wasn't just a castle to Anne, it was her childhood home, the place where she grew up, dreamed, and likely first caught the eye of King Henry VIII, changing the course of English history forever. The castle dates back to the 13th century, evolving from a fortified farmhouse into a comfortable manor house by the time the Boleyn family acquired it in 1462. Anne spent much of her formative years here before being sent to France for her education, and then returning to the English court, a move that would seal her destiny. It was within these very walls that Henry VIII, smitten by her wit and charm, would visit her, sending her love letters that are still preserved today. These visits marked the beginning of a scandalous affair that led to Henry divorcing Catherine of Aragon, breaking with the Catholic Church, and establishing the Church of England, all to marry Anne and make her his queen in 1533. She failed to provide Henry with a male heir who survived infancy, and the king's affections soon waned. Turning to Jane Seymour. In 1536, Anne was accused of treason, incest, and witchcraft, charges widely believed to be fabricated to pave the way for Henry's next marriage. She was arrested, tried, and condemned to death. On May 19, 1536, Anne Boleyn was beheaded within the confines of the Tower of London. Her tragic and unjust end left a lasting impact on English folklore and history, and it is said that her spirit, restless and perhaps seeking vindication, returned to the places she knew best, especially her beloved childhood home. Reports of Anne Boleyn's ghost at Hever Castle are numerous and have persisted for centuries. Visitors and staff alike claim to have witnessed her spectral presence, particularly around the castle gardens and near the great oak tree, a place where she is said to have often sat and read. Many accounts describe seeing a faint ethereal figure, sometimes glimpsed, gliding silently across the lawn or through the archways of the castle itself. One of the most common sightings involves a lady dressed in a pale gown, sometimes resembling the fashion of the Tudor era, who appears to float rather than walk. Her presence is often accompanied by a sudden drop in temperature, even on warm days, and a feeling of an unseen presence. Tour guides have spoken of sensing a strange energy in certain rooms, and some visitors have reported feeling a gentle touch or a chilling breeze when no window or door is open. A particularly poignant manifestation of Anne's spirit is said to occur around Christmas time, coinciding with the time of year she would have spent holidays at Hever with her family. During these colder months, the faint sound of music described as distant lived melodies or soft singing has been reported echoing through the empty halls, as if the castle's past life is briefly replaying itself. Historical sources like The Haunting of Hever Castle, a book by local historian Dr. Evelyn Reed, document various anecdotal accounts from the 19th and 20th centuries, describing encounters with what is believed to be Anne's ghost. One former castle caretaker, Mr. Thomas Finch, recounted in a 1972 interview how he once saw a translucent figure standing by the fireplace in the long gallery its form shimmering before fading away, leaving behind a distinct scent of roses, Anne's favorite flower. The persistent nature of these sightings and experiences adds to the enduring legend of Anne Boleyn's lingering presence at Hever, a testament to her profound connection to the home where her remarkable journey began, and perhaps where her troubled spirit finds some peace in revisiting happier times, far from the executioner's block. Her story remains one of the most compelling in English history, and her spectral presence at Hever Castle serves as a constant, gentle reminder of a queen whose life was tragically cut short, but whose spirit continues to wander the grounds. Number 9. Caerphilly Castle, Wales. Caerphilly Castle, a magnificent medieval fortress dominating the landscape of South Wales, stands as a testament to strategic military architecture, complete with vast moats and imposing walls. Its history stretches back to the 13th century, a period marked by fierce conflicts between Welsh princes and English lords, but beyond its formidable defenses and historical battles, Caerphilly is also home to a poignant and enduring ghost story, linked to a Welsh princess whose heart was broken by betrayal and loss. This is the tale of Princess Gwenllian, often known as the Green Lady of Caerphilly Castle. Gwenllian was the daughter of Llywelyn ap Gruffydd, the last independent prince of Wales, a figure who bravely resisted English domination. Her life, though shrouded in some historical ambiguity, is believed to have been marked by profound sorrow and a deep connection to her Welsh heritage. The legend suggests she was romantically involved with Gruffydd the Red, a powerful Welsh warrior, and a loyal supporter of her father. Their love story, however, was destined for tragedy. Precise details of Gwenllian's association with Caerphilly Castle vary in local folklore, but the most widely accepted version posits that she was either imprisoned within its walls or sought refuge there during a period of intense conflict. It was here within the very site of the castle that Gruffydd the Red was said to have been captured and brutally executed by English forces. Overwhelmed by grief and despair, Gwenllian reportedly died of a broken heart, her spirit unable to move on from the place where her love met such a cruel end. Her death, tied to the suppression of Welsh independence and the loss of her beloved, imbued her spirit with a deep, sorrowful resonance that is said to linger within the castle grounds to this day. Her spectral presence is a reminder of the turbulent times and the personal tragedies that often unfolded amidst the grand historical narratives. The ghost of Princess Gwenllian is one of Caerphilly Castle's most famous and frequently reported phenomena. She is commonly known as the Green Lady, due to the traditional descriptions of her apparition, often seen wearing a flowing green dress, the color said to symbolize her Welsh identity and the natural beauty of the land she cherished. Sightings of Gwenllian typically involve a translucent figure, gliding silently along the castle's battlements or through the echoing chambers and passages of the inner ward. Visitors have reported feeling an inexplicable sadness or a sudden, overwhelming chill in certain areas, particularly near the Leaning Tower and the crumbling remains of the inner buildings, spots where she is believed to have spent her final sorrowful days. Many anecdotal accounts describe a faint, lingering scent of wild roses or honeysuckle that suddenly appears and then vanishes, a fragrance associated with her presence. Over the centuries, countless individuals, from castle staff to tourists and paranormal investigators, have contributed to the lore of the Green Lady. In her comprehensive study of Welsh folklore, Echoes of the Dragon, published in 1998, Dr. Bronwyn Davies details several compelling testimonies. One account from the early 20th century, documented by a local historian, speaks of a sentry on night duty at the castle, who claimed to have seen a faint green glow emanating from the battlements, which gradually formed into the shape of a woman, before fading into the night air. More recently, in the early 2000s, a group of students on a historical field trip reported hearing a faint melancholic humming sound coming from one of the disused towers, a sound that seemed to carry an ancient sadness. A particularly intriguing report comes from a castle groundskeeper in the 1970s who recounted seeing a fleeting figure in green drift through the main gatehouse, her form almost shimmering before she disappeared into the shadows. He described a profound sense of melancholy that settled over him after the sighting, a feeling he attributed to the princess's enduring sorrow. These repeated encounters, coupled with the tragic pucro of Princess Gwenllian, weave a captivating tapestry of historical loss and spectral persistence, making Caerphilly Castle a truly compelling destination. Number 8. Glamis Castle, Scotland. Glamis Castle, nestled in the heart of Angus, Scotland, is not just a breathtaking example of Scottish baronial architecture, but also one of the most famously haunted castles in the world. Its towering turrets, sprawling grounds, and long-storied history are steeped in tales of royalty, murder, and dark secrets whispered through generations. While not associated with the reigning Queen of Scotland, Glamis is profoundly linked to a powerful and tragic noblewoman, Lady Janet Douglas, the Lady of Glamis, whose harrowing story of betrayal and execution has made her one of the castle's most prominent spectral residents. Lady Janet Douglas was a formidable figure in 16th century Scotland, born into the powerful Douglas, Master of Angus and sister to Archibald Douglas, 6th Earl of Angus, who was for a time the stepfather of King James V. In 1528, Janet married John Lyon, 6th Lord Glamis. Her life, however, was soon plunged into political turmoil and personal tragedy. Due to the complex and often brutal political landscape of 16th century Scotland, marked by intense power struggles between various noble families, and the young King James V, Lady Janet found herself caught in a dangerous web. King James V deeply resented the powerful Douglas family, who had effectively held him captive for several years during his minority. His reign was characterized by a systematic campaign to crush the power of the Douglases. Lady Janet, despite her high standing and her marriage to a powerful lord, became a target of the king's vengeance against her family. In 1537, she was accused of treason and, more dramatically, of witchcraft, charges widely believed to be false and politically motivated. Despite protesting her innocence, she was condemned. On July 17, 1537, Lady Janet Douglas was tragically burned at the stake on Castle Hill in Edinburgh, a brutal end for a woman of her stature. Her young son, John Lyon, was also imprisoned, and his estates, including Glamis Castle, were seized by the crown. It is this horrific and unjust death that is said to have tied Lady Janet's spirit to Glamis, the home she loved and where she raised her family, now stripped from her. Lady Janet Douglas, also known as the Grey Lady or Lady Glamis, is by far the most famous ghost of Glamis Castle, and her spectral presence has been reported for centuries. She is frequently seen in the castle's clock tower, where she is said to roam endlessly, perhaps replaying the agonizing moments leading up to her unjust condemnation. Visitors and staff alike have described seeing a pale, translucent figure, often dressed in gray or white, moving silently through the tower's windows or along its narrow staircases. Her appearance is often accompanied by a sudden, inexplicable drop in temperature, a chilling breeze, and a profound sense of sorrow or unease. Some accounts even mention the faint scent of burning wood, a horrifying reminder of her execution. The legend of Lady Janet's haunting is deeply ingrained in the castle's history, with various accounts documented by historical societies and paranormal investigators. In his detailed 1970 study, Scottish Castles and Their Spirits, noted paranormal researcher Dr. Alistair McGregor recounted multiple sightings of Lady Glamis throughout the 19th and 20th centuries. One particularly striking account came from a former butler in the early 1900s who claimed to have seen her apparition seated in the castle chapel, her hands clasped as if in prayer, her face etched with eternal sorrow, before she slowly faded from view. Another report from the late 1960s, published in a local Angus newspaper, involved a group of tourists who reported feeling a strong cold presence and hearing a mournful sigh emanating from the clock tower, despite being the only ones present in that part of the castle. The most compelling and consistent reports, however, come from members of the Bowes, lion family, who have owned Glamis for centuries, and their staff. It is said that Lady Janet's spectral form has occasionally been seen kneeling by the fireplace, in the Queen's bedroom, or walking through the castle's famous walled garden, forever tied to the place where her life, full of power and eventually indelible mark on the ancient stones of Glamis. Number 7. Lochleven Castle, Scotland. Perched majestically on an island in the middle of Lochleven, Lochleven Castle presents a serene and picturesque image. Yet, beneath its tranquil exterior lies a history marked by intrigue, betrayal, and the confinement of one of Scotland's most iconic and tragic figures, Mary, Queen of Scots. While Mary's ghost is often associated with other locations, Lochleven Castle holds a unique and powerful claim to her lingering spirit, for it was within these isolated walls that she endured her most significant and traumatic period of imprisonment. The castle, dating back to the late 14th century, began as a formidable stronghold and quickly became a place of strategic importance, often used as a state prison due to its island location, making escape incredibly difficult. It was here in June 1567, after being forced to abdicate her throne in favor of her infant son, James VI, that Mary, Queen of Scots, was brought as a prisoner. Mary's time at Lochleven was a period of immense personal suffering and political maneuvering. She was held by the half-brother of her former husband, James Stuart, Earl of Moray, and subjected to harsh conditions. During her imprisonment, she suffered a miscarriage of twins, a devastating blow to her already fragile state. Her fervent supporters, known as the Marian Party, constantly plotted her escape, while her captors pressured her to formalize her abdication. Despite the relentless pressure, Mary, ever resilient, never truly gave up hope. After nearly a year of confinement, on May 2, 1568, with the help of the castle laird's younger brother George Douglas and a young orphaned boy named Willie Douglas, she finally made her daring escape. Mary rowed across the loch, met her loyalists on the shore, and immediately began raising an army. Though her freedom was short-lived, leading to her defeat at the Battle of Langside just 10 days later, and then her flight to England, her imprisonment, and escape from Lochleven remain one of the most dramatic episodes of her turbulent life. It is the trauma of this confinement, the loss of her throne, and the desperation for freedom within these specific walls that are believed to have deeply imprinted her spirit upon the island fortress. The haunting of Mary, Queen of Scots, at Lochleven Castle is distinct from other reports of her ghost, focusing specifically on the echoes of her captivity. While her spectral presence is sometimes reported as a fleeting shadow or a feeling of melancholy, more specific accounts describe her as a mournful figure, often seen near the tower where she was held. She is sometimes depicted in a dark, simple gown, reflecting her imprisonment attire rather than the regal robes of her court. Visitors to the castle, now a ruin managed by Historic Environment Scotland, have reported feeling an intense coldness in certain sections of the tower, particularly in the room believed to be her bedchamber. Even on warm summer days, the air in these areas is often described as feeling heavy, carrying a palpable sense of sorrow and desperation. Local historical records and anecdotal evidence have contributed to the enduring legend. A book, Haunted Scottish Castles, by historian Dr. Fiona Wallace, published in 2005, includes several compelling accounts from previous centuries. One chilling report from the mid-19th century described seeing a solitary female figure standing at a high window in the castle tower during a thick mist, her silhouette gazing out towards the mainland. Seemingly longing for escape, as the mist cleared, the figure vanished. In the late 1980s, a team of paranormal investigators exploring the castle documented unusual electromagnetic fluctuations within the Queen's Tower, inexplicable by natural causes, alongside reports from team members of Feeling, a former site manager for Historic Environment Scotland. Mr. Ian Macpherson stated in a 1990 interview with a national newspaper that he had on several occasions experienced a profound feeling of overwhelming sadness. The persistent nature of these localized experiences, deeply tied to the traumatic events Mary endured, there solidifies Lochleven Castle's place as a poignant and haunted testament to the lasting imprint of a queen's sorrow and her relentless quest. Number 6. Château de Brissac, France. Château de Brissac, a magnificent castle nestled in the heart of the Loire Valley in France, is renowned for its grand architecture, elegant interiors, and sprawling parklands. It is often referred to as the Giant of the Loire Valley due to its 7 stories and 204 rooms, making it the tallest castle in France. Yet beneath its imposing beauty lies a chilling legend that has captivated visitors for centuries: the haunting presence of La Dame Verte, or the Green Lady. While not a reigning queen, this spectral figure is inextricably linked to French royalty. Through her tragic lineage and the dramatic events of her life and death, the Green Lady is believed to be Charlotte de Braise, the illegitimate daughter of King Charles VII of France, making her a direct descendant of royal blood. Charlotte lived in the 15th century, a period of political intrigue and passionate affairs within the French court. She was married to Jacques de Braise, a powerful lord and son of the formidable Grand Seneschal of Normandy. However, their marriage was anything but harmonious. Charlotte was known for her beauty and vivacious spirit, but also for her infidelity. She reportedly had a passionate affair with a young huntsman. Her husband, Jacques, a proud and jealous man, eventually discovered their secret. The exact circumstances of her death are shrouded in legend, but the most popular and chilling version recounts that Jacques, in a fit of rage and vengeance, brutally murdered Charlotte and her lover within the very walls of the castle. This horrific act, born of betrayal and uncontrollable fury, stained the castle with a dark energy that is said to have imprinted Charlotte's tormented spirit upon the place of her demise. Her violent end, a consequence of royal connections and illicit passion, created a profound and lasting spectral presence that continues to terrify and intrigue. The ghost of La Dame Verte is one of France's most famous castle hauntings, and reports of her apparition at Château de Brissac have been consistent and terrifying for centuries. She is always described as being dressed in a flowing green gown, from which she derives her famous nickname. Her most distinctive and disturbing feature is her face, which is said to be completely disfigured, resembling a decaying corpse with hollow eyes and a gaping hole where her nose should be. This gruesome detail is thought to be a reflection of the violence of her death. La Dame Verte is most frequently seen in the castle's chapel and in the tower rooms, areas where her murder is believed to have occurred. Her appearances are often accompanied by a distinct smell of decay and a sudden profound drop in temperature. Numerous witnesses, including members of the Brissac family, who still own and reside in the castle, staff, and visitors, have reported encounters with the Green Lady. In his 1992 book, Ghosts of the Loire Valley, French historian Monsieur Jean-Luc Fournier meticulously documented several historical and contemporary accounts. One chilling 18th century anecdote preserved in the family archives describes a terrified servant who stumbled upon a figure in green floating through the castle's grand hall, her face a horrific blank, letting out a heart-wrenching moan before vanishing through a solid wall. More recently, in the early 2000s, a group of international tourists on a guided night tour reported hearing a series of guttural moans and wails emanating from the chapel, sounds that seemed to come from nowhere and filled them with an overwhelming sense of dread. A particularly harrowing account came from a former chambermaid in the 1970s, who claimed to have seen the full apparition of the Green Lady in one of the guest bedrooms, her terrifying faceless presence causing the maid to faint from fright. The consistent description of her terrifying appearance and the deeply unsettling nature of her presence ensure that the legend of Charlotte de Breze, the Green Lady, continues to cast a long, chilling shadow over the otherwise beautiful Chateau de Brissac. Number 5. Leeds Castle, England. Leeds Castle, often hailed as the loveliest castle in the world, sits gracefully on islands in a lake in Kent, England. Its romantic appearance, with its sprawling gardens and majestic waterfowl, belies a history that is often dark and turbulent, marked by royal intrigue, imprisonment, and betrayal. This 1,000-year-old fortress has been a royal residence for 6 of England's medieval queens, each leaving her own mark. However, one queen in particular is inextricably linked to Leeds Castle's more chilling history. Isabella of France, the notorious she-wolf of France, whose ghost is said to roam its ancient halls. Isabella, born in 1295, was a princess of France, daughter of the powerful King Philip IV, and was married to King Edward II of England in 1308. Their union meant to forge peace between their nations quickly soured. Edward II was a weak and unpopular king, more interested in his male favorites than in governing or his queen. Isabella, a strong-willed and intelligent woman, quickly grew disillusioned with her husband and frustrated by the favoritism shown to Piers Gaveston and later Hugh Despenser, the younger, who effectively controlled the king and the country. Isabella's story at Leeds Castle is one of profound humiliation and a catalyst for her vengeful actions. In 1321, she was denied entry to Leeds Castle by its constable Bartholomew de Battlesmere, who was embroiled in a rebellion against the king. This public insult to a queen was a grave affront, sparking Isabella's rage and providing her with the pretext she needed to act against her husband's enemies. Edward II, spurred by this insult to his queen, swiftly besieged and captured the castle. Executing the constable, however, this incident solidified Isabella's resolve. By 1325, after years of being sidelined, she returned to France, ostensibly on a diplomatic mission, but secretly planning an invasion with her lover, Roger Mortimer. She famously returned to England in 1326 with an army, deposed her husband, and imprisoned him at Berkeley Castle, where he was brutally murdered in 1327. Isabella then ruled as regent for her young son, Edward III, for several years. Her dramatic and ruthless actions earned her the chilling moniker, She-Wolf of France. While her most infamous acts occurred elsewhere, her public humiliation at Leeds Castle was a pivotal moment in her descent into vengeful power, and it is this unresolved fury that is said to keep her spirit tethered to the beautiful, but historically scarred fortress. The haunting presence of Isabella of France at Leeds Castle is a prominent and long-standing legend. Her ghost is often described as a regal yet deeply sorrowful figure, sometimes seen in dark, elegant robes, her face etched with a mixture of anger and regret. Sightings most frequently occur in the Queen's Tower, the oldest surviving part of the castle, which she likely visited or used as her chambers. Visitors and staff have reported experiencing sudden, intense feelings of coldness and unease in certain areas, particularly in the older sections of the castle. The faint echoing sound of a woman's weeping or desperate sighs has also been reported, adding to the mournful atmosphere attributed to her presence. Over the centuries, various anecdotal accounts and historical observations have lent credence to the legend of Isabella's haunting. In Haunted Castles of England, a collection of paramour reports, compiled by folklorist Dr. Charlotte Finch in 2001, several 18th and 19th century accounts described castle guards claiming to have seen a shadowy. A more recent report from the 1990s, published in a local Kent historical newsletter, came from a tourist who claimed to have seen a fleeting glimpse of a woman with dark hair and a pale face looking out from a high window in the Queen's Tower, before she abruptly vanished. A long-serving groundskeeper, Mr. Gerald Davies, who retired in 2010, once recounted a peculiar incident and inexplicably plummeted, causing objects to rattle on shelves, even though there is no draft and no obvious explanation. The consistent nature of these phenomena, deeply rooted in the traumatic events of her life and her connection to the castle, ensures that Isabella's lingering spirit remains a chilling and compelling part of Leeds Castle's enduring historical tapestry. Number 4. Edinburgh Castle, Scotland. Edinburgh Castle, perched dramatically atop an extinct volcanic crag, dominates the skyline of Scotland's capital city. This ancient fortress is not merely a landmark, it is the beating heart of Scottish history, a place where kings and queens resided, battles were fought, and countless lives unfolded. Its long and often brutal past has cemented its reputation as one of the most haunted places in Scotland, and among its many spectral residents, the spirit of most poignant and frequently reported. Mary's connection to Edinburgh Castle is profound and deeply personal. She was born at the Linlithgow Palace in 1542, but was brought to Edinburgh Castle shortly after her birth for safety and her early childhood. Crucially, it was within the castle's royal apartments that she gave birth to her only child, James VI. In 1566, the very son who would later unite the crowns of Scotland and England. Her life, a tragic saga of political intrigue, 3 marriages, and ultimately execution by her cousin Queen Elizabeth I, was marked by sorrow and struggle, while Mary resided in many palaces and castles throughout her tumultuous life. Edinburgh Castle remained a symbol of her royal power and a place of both great joy and immense sorrow. Her reign was constantly plagued by religious and political factionalism among her nobles, culminating in widespread rebellion. After the murder of her Italian private secretary, David Rizzio, who was brutally dragged from her private supper chamber at Holyrood Palace and stabbed multiple times in front of her, Mary was brought to Edinburgh Castle. The trauma of Rizzio's murder and the constant threats to her life undoubtedly left an indelible mark on her psyche, and according to legend, on the castle itself. Although she fled to England in 1568, never to return to Scotland, the castle served as a key stage for some of the most dramatic moments of her personal and political life, making it a powerful anchor for her enduring spiritual presence. Mary, Queen of Scots, is said to haunt Edinburgh Castle, though her appearances are often more subtle and melancholic than overtly terrifying. Her spectral presence is most frequently reported in the royal apartments, particularly around the birthing room where James VI was born, a place of immense significance for her. Witnesses describe feeling a profound sense of sadness, a sudden drop in temperature, and an overwhelming feeling of an unseen presence. Some accounts describe a fleeting glimpse of a pale, regal figure, sometimes seen in the shadows or caught in peripheral vision, before vanishing. Unlike some more dramatic apparitions, Mary's ghost is often described as a quieter, more sorrowful presence, perhaps forever mourning her lost throne and her lost life. Throughout the centuries, various accounts from castle staff guards and visitors have contributed to the legend of Mary's haunting. In his extensive 1985 research, Spectral Scottish Queens, paranormal researcher Dr. Ewan Campbell cited several compelling testimonies. One notable account from a castle guard in the early 1900s, recorded in internal security logs, described hearing faint, inexplicable sobbing sounds emanating from the Queen's apartments late at night, when the castle was empty. Another report from the 1960s, published in a local historical society's newsletter, involved a tourist who claimed to have felt a cold, intangible handbrush against their arm in the royal apartments, followed by an overwhelming wave of grief. More recently, in the early 2000s, a team of paranormal investigators decoring the castle's royal chambers documented unusually high electromagnetic field (EMF) readings, particularly near the birthing room, without any discernible cause. During their investigation, some team members also reported faint whispers that seemed to call out a historical name, though they could not clearly decipher it. These consistent reports, coupled with the deeply personal and traumatic historical events that unfolded for Mary within Hever Castle, solidify its reputation as a place where the sorrowful spirit of a queen still lingers, a perpetual echo of her tumultuous reign and tragic fate. Number 3. Windsor Castle, England. Windsor Castle, the oldest and largest inhabited castle in the world, is an enduring symbol of the British monarchy. For nearly 1,000 years it has served as a royal fortress, palace, and home, witnessing countless historical events, state occasions, and personal dramas of kings and queens. Given its immense age and continuous royal occupation, it is perhaps no surprise that Windsor is considered one of the most haunted castles in England, with a long list of reported spectral residents. Among them, the ghost of one of England's most powerful and iconic monarchs, Queen Elizabeth I, is particularly prominent and frequently cited. Elizabeth, the firstborn in 1533, was the daughter of Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn. Her reign from 1558 to 1603 was a golden age in English history, marked by relative peace, prosperity, and the flourishing of arts and exploration. Known as the Virgin Queen, she ruled with exceptional intelligence, political acumen, and a deep love for her country. Windsor Castle was one of Elizabeth's most cherished residences. She spent a significant amount of time there throughout her long reign, holding court, entertaining foreign dignitaries, and enjoying its peaceful surroundings. She famously commissioned several building projects at the castle, including the North Terrace, where she often walked. It was also at Windsor that Elizabeth, in her final days, fell into a deep melancholy and illness. She reportedly refused to go to bed, preferring to stand for days, eventually collapsing and dying in Richmond Palace in 1603. Her strong personality, her deep connection to the castle, and her powerful legacy are all believed to contribute to her enduring spectral presence within its walls. She was a monarch who commanded respect and absolute authority in life, and it seems her spirit continues to command attention in death, perhaps still watching over her beloved kingdom from her favorite royal residence. The ghost of Queen Elizabeth I is one of the most frequently reported and distinctive hauntings at Windsor Castle. She is typically described as a regal, often solemn figure seen in the older parts of the castle, particularly the Royal Library and the Long Walk, where she spent much time. Witnesses report seeing a tall, imposing woman in a dark flowing gown, sometimes with her red hair pulled back as was her style. Her presence is often announced by a sudden, inexplicable feeling of coldness, a sense of gravitas, and sometimes the faint scent of violet perfume, said to be her favorite. Unlike some other more distressed spirits, Elizabeth's ghost is often described as serene, as if she is merely observing or continuing her royal duties. Over the centuries, countless individuals, from royal family members and palace staff to guards and visitors, have contributed to the lore of Queen Elizabeth I's haunting. In her authoritative 1999 book, Royal Phantoms: The Ghosts of Windsor Castle, historian and paranormal researcher Dr. Penelope Shaw details numerous compelling reports. One recurring account, stretching back to the 18th century, describes palace guards witnessing a shadowy female figure walking through the royal library. After closing hours, the rustle of her skirts audible but no physical form fully discernible. A more recent report from a former royal aide in the 1970s recounts how he once saw the unmistakable figure of a woman in Tudor dress standing by a window in the royal library, her face illuminated by the moonlight, before she slowly faded from view, leaving behind a strong, distinctive scent of violets. Another compelling piece of evidence comes from the 1990s, when a group of electricians working late in the castle reported lights flickering and then turning off and on seemingly of their own accord in a section of the royal library, accompanied by a distinct cold spot that moved around the room. The consistent nature of these reports, coupled with Elizabeth I's powerful connection to Windsor Castle and her enduring status as one of England's greatest monarchs ensures that her regal presence remains a castle's living history, a powerful echo of the Golden Age still lingering within its ancient stone. Number 2. Hampton Court Palace, England. Hampton Court Palace, situated on the River Thames in Richmond upon Thames, is a sprawling, magnificent royal palace with a history deeply intertwined with the Tudor monarchs, particularly King Henry VIII. It was his favorite residence, and he invested vast sums and effort into transforming it into a palace fit for a king and his ever-changing array of queens. Among the many royal dramas that unfolded within its walls, the tragic story of Catherine Howard, Henry VIII's fifth wife, stands out as one of the most poignant and chilling, making her spectral presence one of the most famous and active hauntings at Hampton Court. Catherine Howard, born around 1523, was a young, vivacious noblewoman, a cousin of Anne Boleyn. She caught Henry VIII's eye in 1540, a year after his marriage to Anne of Cleves was annulled. Henry, by then an aging and ailing monarch, was instantly smitten by Catherine's youth and beauty, and they married in July 1540. She brought a brief period of happiness and vigor to the king's life. However, Catherine's past, particularly her indiscreet youthful affairs, began to catch up with her. In 1541, accusations of premarital misconduct and, more damningly, of adultery after her marriage to Henry emerged. The evidence, though debated by historians, seemed overwhelming to the king, whose previous wives had already caused him so much turmoil. Catherine was stripped of her title, placed under house arrest at Hampton Court, and later taken to the Tower of London. The most dramatic and enduring part of her story at Hampton Court centers on her desperate attempt to reach the king and plead for her life. On November 7, 1541, upon learning of her impending arrest, Catherine is said to have broken free from her guards and run down the long gallery screaming Henry's name, hoping to appeal to him before she was taken away. She was reportedly dragged back kicking and screaming by guards. She was eventually executed at the Tower of London in February 1542. It is this desperate final plea, filled with terror and anguish, that is believed to have imprinted her screaming spirit upon the very floors of Hampton Court, forever repeating her last futile attempt to save herself. The ghost of Catherine Howard is undoubtedly the most famous and terrifying apparition at Hampton Court Palace. She is known as the Screaming Queen due to the distinct and chilling nature of her haunting. Her spectral presence is most frequently reported in the Long Gallery, now famously known as the Haunted Gallery, where her desperate dash to the king is said to have occurred. Witnesses often describe hearing blood-curdling screams, sometimes accompanied by the sound of running footsteps echoing through the gallery. When no one is present, these screams are described as filled with terror, anguish, and desperation, truly reflecting her final moments of futile struggle. Beyond the auditory phenomena, sudden extreme drops in temperature are common, and some visitors have reported feeling an unseen presence brush past them, or a sudden profound sense of panic. The legend of Catherine Howard's haunting is meticulously documented and has been reported by countless individuals over centuries, including royal staff, historians, and numerous visitors. In Haunted Palaces of England, a definitive guide to royal hauntings published by Dr. Margaret Vance in 2008, several compelling accounts are detailed. One particular chilling account from the early 1900s, recorded by a former palace guard, described him hearing a series of high-pitched, agonizing screams emanating from the long gallery late at night, sounds so real that he was convinced a living person was in distress, only to find the gallery completely empty upon investigation. More recently, in 2003, CCTV cameras installed in the haunted gallery captured footage of what appeared to be a door mysteriously flying open on its own, followed by a security alarm being triggered by an unexplained drop in temperature, just moments after the screams were reported by visitors. This incident gained widespread media attention, further cementing Catherine's ghostly reputation. Numerous tour guides and regular staff members have their own stories, often recounting instances of sudden cold spots, the feeling of being touched, or the terrifying distinctness of her screams, a perpetual echo of a young queen's desperate plea for life, forever trapped within the elegant walls of Hampton Court. Number 1. Tower of London, England. Tower of London, a formidable fortress steeped in nearly 1,000 years of history, stands as one of England's most iconic and terrifying landmarks. More than just a royal palace or a defensive stronghold, it served for centuries as a notorious prison and a place of execution where some of the most dramatic and brutal events in British history unfolded. Chilling past, marked by political intrigue, murder, and the tragic fates of countless prisoners, has cemented its reputation as arguably the most haunted castle in England, if not the world. Among its many reported spectral residents, the ghost of Anne Boleyn, King Henry VIII's second wife, is the most famous, the most frequently cited, and undoubtedly the most poignant. Anne Boleyn, born around 1501, was a lady-in-waiting to Henry VIII's first wife, Catherine of Aragon. Her magnetic personality, sharp wit, and strong convictions captivated the king, leading to his monumental decision to break with the Roman Catholic Church and establish the Church of England in order to marry her. She became Queen of England in 1533, and for a brief, turbulent period held immense power. However, her failure to produce a male heir who survived infancy, combined with Henry's growing infatuation with Jane Seymour and the machinations of his ambitious chief minister Thomas Cromwell, led to her downfall. In May 1536, Anne was arrested on trumped-up charges of treason, adultery, and incest. She was confined to Tower of London, the very place where she had been crowned queen just 3 years prior. Her trial was a farce, and she was condemned to death. On May 19, 1536, Anne Boleyn was beheaded on Tower Hill, becoming the first English queen to be executed. Her unjust death, her unwavering declaration of innocence, and the profound historical impact of her life have left an indelible mark on the tower, making her spirit its most enduring and powerful resident. Her haunting is not merely a ghost story. It is a profound historical echo, a spectral testament to an innocent queen's tragic end. The ghost of Anne Boleyn at the Tower of London is legendary and frequently reported. She is most commonly seen in the area around the scaffold site on Tower Green where she met her end, and in the Queen's house where she spent her final days imprisoned. Her apparition is typically described as a pale, ethereal figure, sometimes seen headless, her head tucked under her arm, or sometimes with her head intact, dressed in a long flowing gown reminiscent of Tudor court attire. Witnesses often describe feeling a profound sense of sadness, an inexplicable coldness, and an overwhelming feeling of an unseen presence in her preferred haunting spots. The atmosphere in these areas is often described as heavy, almost suffocating, as if the very air still holds the echoes of her final moments. Over the centuries, countless yeoman warders, beefeaters, visitors, and even royal staff have contributed to the chilling accounts of Anne Boleyn's haunting. In his definitive 1989 book, Ghosts of the Tower, renowned historian and paranormal investigator Dr. Arthur Blackwood meticulously documents numerous sightings. One particularly famous account from the early 1900s involved a guard who, while on duty near the Queen's house, claimed to have seen a translucent procession of figures, including Anne Boleyn, moving silently through the archway, her head held beneath her arm. Another chilling report published in a historical journal in the 1950s came from a night watchman who was so terrified by the sudden drop in temperature and the distinct sound of ethereal weeping emanating from the Queen's house that he refused to return to that section of the tower alone. More recently, in the 1990s, A group of tourists on a private night tour reported seeing a misty gray figure resembling a woman in period dress standing motionless in the window of the Queen's house before vanishing into thin air. The sheer volume and consistency of these sightings, combined with the immense historical significance of Anne Boleyn's tragedy within its walls, solidify the Tower of London's reputation as the ultimate haunted castle, where the sorrowful rest spirit of a queen forever walks the grounds of her ultimate humiliation.